Hello, I'm Richard Murphy, and I want to talk about a subject I've written 2 books about, which is what is a tax haven? The simple fact is that after 20 years of people actively campaigning against tax haven abuse, we still aren't absolutely sure what a tax haven is. There are fundamentally 3 types of tax haven that we might identify. One are financial services hubs, where money moves with relatively light regulation. Many people would argue that the City of London is on this basis the largest tax haven in the world because it was deliberately created from the 1950s onwards to actually provide facilities to foreign banks and foreign people which they couldn't get in their own countries. And therefore it's a tax haven as far as they're concerned because they can do things in London that aren't available elsewhere. Now that immediately introduces an idea that is critical to understanding tax havens. Tax havens are always services to people who are not in the country where the financial activity is recorded. So we have a place, in this case London, which is providing services to people from outside the UK. The haven simply means not that it's as such a small island or anything else. An offshore doesn't even mean that it's actually got a wave lapping on a beach. What it means is it's just somewhere else outside the UK, which is where the term arose first of all. There's a second type of haven, which is called a conduit haven. And these are the places which help money flow into and out of financial services hubs with no tax being paid. And there's quite a number of these. The Netherlands is notorious as a conduit tax haven, but so are places like Cyprus and Malta. Cyprus tends to handle money coming out of Russia in particular into the Western economy. Malta is particularly popular with money flowing from Africa into the European Union, for example, but there are plenty of others. And then there's the third type of tax haven, which is the one that most people think is the common form. And that is the classic, if you like, small island that is offering low or no taxes to those who can manage to shift their profits or their income to that place, and provides masses of secrecy to the person who can do so to make sure that they can't be found out. Now, when I first began to work on tax haven issues, the thing that we were most concerned about was the classic tax haven. And what we were troubled by was the fact that we knew that very large amounts of money were moving from developing countries in particular, which is still true, by the way. The biggest victims of tax havens are developing countries, into tax havens where either through corruption or illicit accounting practices, money was shifted from where it should have been taxed into tax havens where it wasn't taxed. Which are these tax havens? Look, we're talking about places like the Cayman Islands, Jersey, Guernsey, the Isle of Man, British Virgin Islands, Gibraltar. All of these, by the way, are UK territories. There are non-UK territories. The Dutch have a couple. And we could also perhaps include some places like Singapore in this list as the places which provide extreme secrecy to ensure that tax abuse can't be identified. In fact, in 2008, I coined a term for these places. It was secrecy jurisdiction. And a secrecy jurisdiction I defined as a place which creates legislation for the benefit of people who don't live in a country, and that they also provide a veil of secrecy to make sure that those people can't be identified by the tax authorities in the places where they really do live. Now that's the ultimate definition of the classic tax haven. The tax haven is abusive for a number of reasons. It undermines fair competition. Anybody who says that tax havens are necessary for competition is, I'm afraid to say, lying. Competition is dependent upon a level playing field, and of course tax havens exist to destroy it. Competition is dependent upon all participants in a market having access to the same information, but of course tax havens exist to deny information. So tax havens are deeply anti-competitive. And because they're deeply anti-competitive, they actually impose costs on the rest of society. Costs because tax isn't paid. Costs because businesses can't compete fairly. So tax havens are bad news, which is why we've concentrated on them. And what have we done to beat tax havens over the last 20 years? Well, I've been involved in these processes. We've demanded that large companies disclose where they run their operations, and we've made progress. In tax terms, we've had an absolute victory with country-by-country reporting. Tax authorities now know where large companies do undertake their activities. With regard to individuals, we've created something called automatic information exchange. I was told in June 2009 by the UK Treasury that automatic information exchange, data from tax havens on who holds accounts in those places, would not happen to the tax authorities of the places where the owners of those accounts really lived in my lifetime. Well, it's happening now, and I'm still alive. So we've had real wins. Tax havens are not quite the curse they were, but they're still present, they're still innovating. They still have lawyers and accountants and banks operating in them who are still trying to find ways to cheat. So tax havens remain an issue that are absolutely opposed to fair competition, and also something else just as important. They're opposed to governments collecting the taxes that are owed to them, which have been chosen on the basis of the democratic mandate that a government has from the people of the place where that tax is set. So tax havens are also an assault on democracy. And that's important because democracy is in a pretty vulnerable state. We can't afford that assault. So because of their impact on competition, because of their impact on taxes, and because of their impact on democracy, we still have to be worried about tax havens. This is an issue that hasn't gone away. I'm Richard Murphy. I'll be discussing more around this theme in this video series. If you're interested, please click the subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter. My handle is @RichardJMurphy, and look at my blog, Tax Research UK. Thanks for watching.